Hello, and welcome to the first episode of T.J.Johnson. Now, I'm a writer, I live a bohemian lifestyle, and I do a lot of reading. So, that is what this episode will consist of, as the title suggests. It is how to keep this image of clarity in reading and not how to dwindle out and lose interest. Because it's, as anything, you want to keep interest, and that is why school fails for so many people. It's the same day, in and out, and then they lose interest and therefore just stop caring about it, and then become average members of society. So, how do I keep an interest in reading? Well, as I've said, I read a lot, and I started, as anyone does, reading fiction. Now, you can't see it, but right down there on the bottom of the bookshelf, I have an entire shelf dedicated to Tolkien, because I read The Hobbit when I was in year 7, and it was the first book that I'd properly read that I just couldn't put down. Then I read Lord of the Rings and everything. Then, as I matured, I got into reading these books, the Penguin Classics, and I read them for understanding, read them to better understand the world I live in, better understand politics, history, and then after that I decided to get really invested in philosophy, so I read these books, these little blue books. And those are mostly Camus on my shelf, Albert Camus. And then, just recently, I've gotten into these little Penguin Great Ideas. Now, I have read a lot in the last month. I am currently reading this book on philosophy, a very short introduction. And I've read George Orwell's Books versus Cigarettes, Les Miserables, and Dr. Thorne. So we can agree that that's a lot, and I can even feel myself dwindling down and losing interest. So every now and again I read a fiction or fantasy book to boost me up, and this all started when I had been reading philosophy for a little while now, and I just was in this reading rut where I looked at my shelf and said, I have to read this. Oh, look at that, I've got to read it. Rather than I get to read that and enjoy it. And so my friend recommended American Psycho, which is just there. And it was the first book in about 3 years which I finished in a day, purely because of how good it was. Now, since then, I've started this lovely, let's call it tradition, tribal ritual, where for every 3-4 books of better understanding that I read, I will read 1 book or 2 books of fiction, fantasy, whatever. So therefore, I get this lovely cool down period, and it's not a book which I will read for better understanding, whereas I underline practically every word in this and make notes. This book I can just pick up, read, enjoy, just for the sake of reading, and get my interest back. So at the moment I have just finished 4 books, and so I'm reading Coraline right now, and it is, again, boosting my morale back up. So, I've written a short story about this, and I like to think of reading, or any activity, as a wall, a big wall full of lanterns, kerosene lanterns, all connected to one drip with an oil well. Now, every time you feel enjoyment from, let's say, family, a drip gets added into the oil of the lamp, and so it burns for longer. Every time, though, that you don't get enjoyment, no drip is added, and therefore the flame burns lower and lower and lower, creating this just until it burns out. And so, with that, once it's burnt out, can't be relit. So, school is one that most people would find burns out within the first couple of years, and then they never get enjoyment from it again. Reading is the same. If I were to read these for the rest of my life, yes, that flame would have burnt out years ago. I've just dropped the book. It would have burnt out years ago. So if I were now to read fiction for the love... Now, I do love reading philosophy, so there are some drips added every now and again, but when I read fiction, it just gets added in like that. So every now and again, reading a fiction book will just boost the morale and keep you going. Same as with writing. With writing, you don't always have to be writing to get things published or to be noticed. Every now and again, it is good just to write a story which no one will ever publish, or you don't want it published, but just write the story for you. That's it. No one else has to see it. But if you were to write forevermore because you just want to sell and so on and so forth, then you're not going to find any enjoyment from that, and it's not going to work. So every now and again, it is very good to take a break, relax, kick your feet up, and read for the better understanding of it, and also read just because you love to read. Now, these episodes I am hoping to post every week or so. I'm not a film guy. I don't do much cinematography, so they're not going to be all flashing lights and colours, but more just me answering your questions about reading, writing, or even if you have a question about my writing process, or on philosophy, or a certain philosopher, or so on and so forth. If you have a question, please put it in the comments below. No question is a stupid question, unless you're asking me what 2 + 2 is. So please subscribe, click the notification bell so that you get notified whenever a new episode pops out, which I hope to be talking about how to read philosophical books and how to understand them. So, that's it for now, and goodbye.